So it's 7:03, and I would like to open the Townsend Housing Authority meeting for January 27th. Can I have a roll call, please?
Natalie Call, present.
Laura Schifrin, present.
Cal Sexton Duranian, present.
And Courtney Briley, present. If any other boards would like to open it.
I'm here for, well, I'm here for Lance, but I'm on the Housing Authority, but as of planning, but Lance can't make it. And I don't think I'll be calling to order for the planning board because
Carol just popped in.
Carol?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
unless you have a quorum, you don't have to open your meeting. So.
Okay, so I currently do not have a quorum.
Thank you.
And we're not going to open the zoning board meeting until somebody else shows up.
Okay.
And the same holds for the Townsend Housing Authority. We need one more person, and I thank Cindy for being here.
I am here, Joan. I think we have a quorum.
Ronnie, great. Oh,
So let me, before you open, let me just say that we are not opening the Board of Selectmen meeting. Chaz is attending for the Housing Authority, and I am attending for the Affordable Housing Trust. And so we will not be commenting as selectmen or contributing as selectmen today. If there is something that needs to go back to the select board, we'll make a note of it, and I'll put it on the agenda for our Tuesday meeting. There is still time to revise. So I just want that noted.
Thank you. So I will call to order the what time is it?
7:04.
Thank you.
After 7.
At 7:04 p.m. on Thursday, January 27th, the Townsend Affordable Housing Trust. Joan Savoy present.
Veronica Cal present.
Cindy Boundy present.
That's it. Thank you.
I'm going on.
Okay, so this meeting is being recorded. And I guess we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance now, unless anybody else needs to open before that. Okay.
No, we're good.
I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Are we okay to keep going?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. So thank you, Jen, for being here. So everyone, if you have not met Jen from Jam Goldson and Andrew, welcome.
Hi, Andrew.
You all should have received a copy of the housing production plan, and we can go ahead and get started if anybody has any opening comments before we go. But thank you again, Jen and Andrew, for all the great work. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'm happy to, we have a presentation to share, so I'm happy to do that and share the screen, and I see that I'm able to do that. So is that okay if I start that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So Andrew and I are really happy to be here. We've been working for a number of months now. I've lost track of how many, with very closely with the Housing Authority, and we're really happy to share the draft plan with you all and get some feedback on any revisions that you'd like to see, or answer any questions. As you know from having looked at the plan, it's a pretty lengthy plan. We have a detailed analysis in there. We really try hard to comply as well as possible with the state regulations that dictate how these plans are put together. And so if you feel like it was a lot of information, you're right. They do ask you to do a very detailed analysis and then come up with a series of goals and strategies that really meet their requirements for these plans. And so I'll get into this in a little more detail in a moment, but there are really two purposes of a plan like this. It's to meet those requirements by the state and give the ability for Townsend to have a certified plan or enter safe harbor. But the other benefit of doing a plan like this is to try to understand what your housing needs are and to help all of these different boards and commissions as they're working toward housing goals to understand where should they be prioritizing their efforts. And so it helps you move forward in a deliberate and coordinated way. But in order to do that, we really want to make sure that it's the right set of goals and strategies for you. And I can talk more about, what are the requirements of DHCD and making sure we meet those. And then there's certainly flexibility as long as we meet those basic requirements. So the contents is relatively standard. We have the Comprehensive Housing Needs Assessment, which consists of really a few chapters. One is on demographics and the other is on housing characteristics. And then we also have a section on affordability within that chapter. We also have a section on development constraints, and that includes regulatory barriers and opportunities, I should say, but the terminology that the state uses is regulatory barriers or constraints. We also look at infrastructure constraints, and then we also have a chapter on implementation capacity where we talk about the various, the trust and the housing authority and the various entities that are doing work in your community towards helping to address housing goals. And then we have the 5-year goals and strategies and an action plan. And so I won't get too much into the first 3 tonight. They're very detailed. We're happy to answer questions or pull up the document if you do have questions about those. But I really wanted to focus in on the 5-year goals and strategies. But before I get into that, what I'd like to do is just give you kind of an overview and definition so that we're all using the same lingo and talking about the same thing. So in terms of Chapter 40B basics, Chapter 40B, Section 20 through 23, it's actually a small part of Chapter 40B that is the comprehensive permit law. And it was enacted in the late 60s, I think it was 69. And I like to remind people that the reason that this law is in place isn't really about housing, it's about people. And it's trying to set up what the state legislature felt was a fair system of having each community in the state work toward the same goal of having 10% of its year-round housing stock as affordable. And so it really is trying to promote inclusion of diverse populations because we know that socioeconomic diversity is very much tied to the type of housing that's available in a community. Affordable housing, household size, the ability of the availability, I should say, of rental housing as well. And so the statute sets it actually sets 2 goals, but the one that the HPP, the Housing Production Plan, is required to be focused on is the percentage goal of year-round housing units. So the goal is that 10% of your year-round housing units, as of the last current decennial census, which is still technically 2010, we're hoping that soon DHCD will come out with the new figures based on 2020 when all of that 2020 census data is released that they need to figure out your new percentage. But as of now, we still go off of the 2010 census and we look at your year-round housing units and how many of those are affordable. And I put a capital A with an underline because when I say affordable, I'm not talking about, in this instance, naturally occurring affordable, just homes that are less expensive than maybe the average home. I'm talking about homes that actually meet very specific criteria, and I'll talk about that, I think, on the next slide or in a couple slides. So And what happens if you don't have that 10% of your housing stock as affordable? Well, it means that developers can seek what's called a comprehensive permit and can ask for waivers to your local regulations, including your zoning regulations, to build something that typically is more dense, maybe a different housing type than would otherwise be allowed. And it enables the Zoning Board of Appeals to approve those developments under flexible rules. So they don't need to follow the density rules, the dimensional requirements, local wetlands bylaw. If at least 20 or 25% of the units that are proposed in the development are affordable with a capital A. And I give a range. A lot of people know about the 25% of units. There's actually different subsidy programs. And if you're providing more deeply affordable units, you can actually have less of them at the 20% and still count under Chapter 40B. But probably most of the ones you see and are familiar with have the 25% of the units as affordable. So one interesting thing that many of you may already know, but I think it bears just a reminder, is that in a comprehensive permit development, there you can have a rental development or an ownership development. So an ownership development, for example, could be condos or could be townhouses that are condos or something like that. And they're very different from each other in that a different amount of units will count. So on a couple slides ago, I said that 20 or 25% of the units need to be affordable to income eligible households. But the interesting thing is that if you have a rental project that meets that minimum affordability requirement, on your subsidized housing inventory, the town can actually count all of the units in the rental development, even the ones that are not affordable. And that's to really just promote more rental development. And this is something that has been, on the books for a long time, and rental housing is still one of the most important types of housing that's needed across the state. And so that's why there's that incentive. You can basically count more units towards your 10% requirement if you approve a rental development versus a condo or other kind of ownership development. So for the ownership developments, condos would be just kind of the typical one you'd see. You only count the actual deed restricted affordable units. So I'm hoping this makes sense. Happy to answer questions about that, but it's an important policy piece just so you are aware of that.
Jen?
Yeah.
Hi. So if hypothetically we build a 10 apartment house, all 10 units, and let's say half are affordable and half are market rate, all would count towards the affordable inventory. Right?
Correct.
Thanks.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
if
it has, excuse me, it has to be built under the 40B
Correct.
permitting. And I don't-
Yes, it has to meet the 25%, but you can also count if you have, I don't know if you're familiar with 40R, you can count those as long as you are still doing the 25% at the 80% of the area median income, which I'll get into in a minute about what that 80% means, but you can count others even if they're not under comprehensive permit, if they meet those requirements.
Cool.
Okay, great. Good questions, and please ask questions anytime. Okay, so what do we mean by that capital A affordable housing? So it needs to meet four things. It has to have a deed restriction or affordability restriction. It doesn't have to be permanent, by the way, but many towns have a policy that they would prefer to use their own funds, for example, to create permanently affordable units. But you have to have at least a restriction of 30 years for most types of development. And then you need to have a specific marketing approach that really markets affirmatively and fairly across the region. And that's why you're really limited usually to no more than 70% of the units upon initial occupancy as local preference units for people who have a connection to your community. The third is that you need to have essentially a certain type of so only certain subsidizing agencies can create this type of affordable housing. And so mass housing is one, mass housing partnership is another, mass development, the Department of Housing and Community Development, and there's a few others, but those are the most common ones. And so they need to go under that, and that's where you get, many of you are probably familiar with 40Bs, so I won't define this too well because I think you're already familiar, but that's who gives the Pell, the project eligibility letter. It's that subsidizing agency. So that's number 3. And then number 4, it has the price, either rental or ownership condo sales price, has to be affordable to households at a certain income. And I'm going to show you what that income is right now for towns. And this changes every year. So you may have seen numbers from last year and they were a little bit different than this year. This is set by the federal government. So it's set by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So when I say it needs to be affordable at a certain level, this is the top of the level. It's 80% of the area median income. And that's a different income for different household sizes. So we're just showing you up from a 1-person household to a 4-person household, what the income threshold is currently this year. And so for a single person household, so someone living alone, if they make $70,750 or less gross income for the year, then they could potentially qualify for affordable housing. And I say potentially because this is only showing you the income limits. There are also asset limits. And then, and that varies by program. And then if you are a household of 4 people, so that could be 2 adults and 2 kids, could be 1 adult, 3 kids, it doesn't matter the ages or how many income earners there are. If you have 4 people living in a household and the household combined income is $101,050 or less, then you could also qualify for affordable housing currently. And again, these numbers will change next year as they will most likely be increased. Another interesting thing we like to point out is the median income. So this is the numbers I'm showing you here when I'm showing you the different household sizes. That's 80% of the area median income. So that's considered low or moderate income. The number down here is the median. And so the median for the Boston metropolitan area is actually 113,300 right now. And what's interesting about that is the Townsend median is quite lower than that. Townsend median is 91,211. So, I'm guessing what that means for you, like in your perspective, when you see these figures of income, you probably don't feel like they're so low. There are probably, folks that make these incomes or could potentially qualify for affordable housing. Is that fair? Is that fair to say? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Are you sharing that, Jen? Because I'm not seeing anything.
You're not? You don't see my slide? Huh, that's
No.
weird. Okay.
Well, I
We're-
see it.
You do?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
All
I
right.
see it.
It says I'm sharing.
Yeah, I see it too. It could be one of
Okay.
the.
Did you
my
not?
bad. Never
To me,
mind.
that,
Okay.
the difference between the area, you're saying that's for the Boston area or just Middlesex County?
No, it's the Boston, it's actually called the Boston, Cambridge, Quincy Massachusetts and New Hampshire Metropolitan Statistic Area. It's a huge area of, well over 100 towns.
Okay.
So it's a very large area. And includes lots of towns with a much higher median income than Townsend has.
Well, okay.
Are
That's
we?
how these are set.
Would they consider lowering the thresholds based on the differential between the area median and the Townsend median?
It's a great question. We get this all the time. So the federal government is not considering this that I know of. But as a local town policy, you could certainly say that we want to promote affordable housing that's affordable to folks, that are 80% of our median income, as an example, or that are lower income because we feel like that's more needed in our community.
Right.
And that's justifiable as a local policy. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Okay, so I think I might have said the word incremental progress before. If I didn't, maybe it was just on one of my slides, but I wanted to define what that means. So a housing production plan allows the community that's not at that 10% yet, but is working toward getting to the 10%, it allows you to make some incremental progress and get more protection than just making that bigger jump to 10%. And so what this means for Townsend is that if you permit 17 units that count on the subsidized housing inventory, and note, I didn't say affordable units, because you could, in theory, permit 17 apartments and 25% of those would be affordable and the other would be market rate, and those 17 would all go on your subsidized housing inventory and get you what we call, officially it's called certification of your housing production plan. Unofficially, people call it safe harbor. And so what does that do? That means that if you get that 17% in one calendar year, 17 units in one calendar year, then your ZBA, your Zoning Board of Appeals, can deny comprehensive permits, and those denials will be upheld by the Housing Appeals Committee. So it gives you that safe harbor, more control over those proposals. And that's really the regulatory benefit of having a housing production plan. And that's why it's important for us to make sure we meet all of the state's requirements when we put this together, so that you have the opportunity to get this protection if you can, approve those.
I think we do maybe 10 houses a year. Is that, anybody got any data on that? It used to be 10 forever, so 17 is a bit of a boost.
What do you mean by that?
Building permits per year for houses, house building permits per
Yeah,
year.
we do have that data, I think, in the plan, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but I know that, 17 may seem like a big number for a small community like Townsend.
I will say that the building commissioner publishes a report every month that includes this sort of data on it. So it's easy enough to put it together. I can't say off the top of my head, Bill, what it is, but 17 does sound like a lot.
It is, Bill. I think it's around 10, 11.
Yeah, it's been the same since I moved to Townsend. So, that was in 1973. So
Yeah.
Doesn't that isn't that what happened with Turnpike Village?
Turnpike.
Road, where they were all considered, where I think there's 21 units, and they were all considered affordable housing when that came into play. So that's an example?
I think you're correct.
Yes. No, that's right. The original one was for ownership condos, but then I guess he was having some sort of trouble, and so he said, I'd like to change it to rental, and we said, knock yourself out, basically. Yeah. So
right, and the town benefited from that, but he changed it because the market was so bad.
Right.
It's not a time to sell them, but
knock on wood, but nobody's applied for a comprehensive permit since that one that I recall. I mean, and I would know because the workload goes up tremendously for those things.
Yeah. So this is your official number as of now. So it's still based, as I said earlier, on the 2010 census. You're at 4.32% of your year-round housing stock. That's equivalent to the 145 units that is listed here. So that's what's listed on the subsidized housing inventory. But we did do a little bit of math, and this is unofficial, so you can't hold us to this, because when DHCD comes out with the actual number, it might be a little different. And the reason I say that is we don't have the breakdown of the vacant units, so we can't actually give you the year-round unit count yet. So we don't know what that denominator is going to actually be, but we're guessing, because we have some of the data, just not all of it. But we're guessing you will go down to just over 4%. And so under the current percentage, you would need 191 more total units to reach the full 10%. And that's why that 17 number, I know relative to how much building you usually see in a year seems high, but if you look at what you would need to get to the full 10%, the 17 is just that incremental progress. So hopefully the 17 is a little better than the 145.
Slightly, yes.
It's all relative, right? And then, so if you do go with our rough calculation for the 2020 figures, then you would need 211 more units. I'm sorry, you need I might have misspoke a moment ago. You need 191 more to reach the 10% under the 2010 census, and we think you'll need about 211 more to reach it under 2020. Okay. Oh, and this map is just showing on the subsidized housing inventory now what projects the units are in.
Jen,
Yeah.
please, 191 more units by when?
Oh, there's not a date. It just means that you'll be subject to the comprehensive permits until you reach that, or until you can get to that 17 units in a year, then you get a 1-year safe harbor.
Like,
All right, so we will talk a little bit about local housing need. So your population is relatively stable, as you're probably not surprised if you're only permitting around 9 or 10 units a year. Your population is pretty stable. You do have an increasing share of older adults, especially those living alone, which is not unusual. That's a trend. That's region-wide, statewide, and even throughout the whole country. Your median household income is lower and than the area median, which we shared a few slides ago, but it's also not trending upward the way the area median is. And so the other thing we looked at was house costs, and the average house that's affordable for a, sorry, I'm not, oh, I know what this is saying. Sorry, I wasn't reading it properly. So in Townsend, we always look at if there's a gap between what a median income household in Townsend could afford, not the area median, your town's median income, so that 91,000, whatever I shared before.
Right.
How much of a house could that household at that income level afford? And then we look at the median sales price and we see if there's a big difference. And in most of the communities we work with, what we find is that the median household cannot afford the median sales price home, that it's much out of reach. And the gap, varies, but it could be $100,000, $400,000 more than what that household could afford. And that's one way to measure something that housing professionals call an affordability gap. The interesting thing in Townsend is that even though your median income is on the lower side compared to the area, your average household costs, sales prices rather, are not very high. And we found that a household making your median income actually can afford the median sales price of homes. So in that respect, your community looks relatively affordable for the people who are living there now. So I don't know if that resonates with folks, or if people feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't think it. Okay.
I agree with you.
Okay. And then we also found that your rental stock is much smaller, but the renters that they do have, they do a sample on the data we're collecting. So it's a kind of a lower sample size than the ownership incomes. But that being said, so there's a larger margin of error on this last bullet is what I'm trying to say. But from what we understand based on those estimates, renters do earn significantly less than homeowners. And that makes sense. And it probably is very true. I just always give a caveat in small towns when we have small sample sizes. I think those are the main points. We also look at what is the household size in the community and what is the size of the housing stock. And it was interesting when we did this exercise in Townsend, because what we found was that even though there are 22% of households are just single people living alone, and 37% are two-person households, What we found is that about 53% of your housing stock are 3 bedrooms. So what, and people say, well, sometimes single person living alone wants to live in a 3 bedroom, and that can be true, but it's also more expensive to try to buy or try to rent a 3 bedroom, especially if you're on a fixed income or, whatnot. Your taxes will be higher, everything. So when we look at affordability, we try to see, is there a mismatch between the household size and the unit size? And we are seeing a big mismatch here.
Yeah.
So
I think that has to do, Jen, with the fact that the contractors can't afford to build small houses because they don't make enough money. I think that's what's
so
going
they're
on.
building bigger houses. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, because
Economic.
why build a little house? You go to all the trouble of setting up all the support.
Right. As a single family. I mean, it makes more sense when you are looking at multifamily.
Right.
All right. And so just in general, and this is a very simplified, that's all we're going to say on housing needs. So when you look at the report, you'll see there's a ton of information in there, and we're happy to go through more of that if you'd like. But the basic analysis indicates that you do have a need, given your existing population, for smaller units, for apartments. And we say within environmental constraints, meaning be cognizant. Your town is extremely sensitive environmentally. You have a lot of resources. Actually, the level of your sensitive lands is much, much greater than in many towns that we work in. So that is not lost on us. And so we say these recommendations about needs with the caveat that placement is very important in most communities, but especially in a community with such fragile ecosystem and important resources. You need rental units and housing for older adults, especially those older adults who are living alone. Okay, and so let's just get into the goals and the strategies now. And we're not going to go through all of these in a lot of detail, but I did list them all, so I'm happy to talk through any that you're interested in exploring more. There are 5 goals in the draft plan, and these follow pretty closely what DHCD wants to see. They want to see something about, trying to do incremental progress to get to your safe harbor. So we have a goal about that. That's the first one. They want to see something about looking at who's living in the community, how are things changing from a demographic perspective, and how can you promote a variety of housing options to meet those needs. So that's what number 2 is about. 3 is more unique to Townsend. We added in a goal about minimizing environmental impacts of new development. And really thinking about how can you promote housing options to those conventional single family homes, maybe some multifamily and some rentals, some smaller units, but in strategic locations that are not environmentally sensitive or as environmentally sensitive, and through reuse opportunities of existing developed land rather than looking to develop on greenfields or forest lands or other natural lands. 4 is really talking about more vulnerable populations, so older adults, veterans, and other vulnerable populations, and really promoting affordability, accessibility, and needed support services to help support those more vulnerable populations in your community. And then 5 is about your capacity. And so we have a few strategies about that, but the capacity is generally about how can you make sure you can implement these ideas and that you have, you're all volunteers on boards and commissions, giving, I'm sure, a lot of time and a lot of evenings and probably a lot of daytime hours too. And I know you now have a land use coordinator, which is a great asset to further your work. And so we think about, what capacity do you have and how can you boost that? Okay, so we have strategies that are listed in 3 categories. The first is about planning policies and zoning or regulatory tools. The second category is local initiatives and programmatic things. So things you can do with your own money, your own land, your own staff power or volunteer power. And then 3 is about capacity, education, and coordination as well. And what I like to say, number 1, I didn't put this on the slide, but number 1, this plan is not binding. That's not to say there are not good recommendations in here, and we hope you can implement these, but it's not binding. DHCD will not come down and say, well, you didn't do, strategy 1, 2, and 3, therefore we won't give you safe harbor. That's not what they do. They only look at that number 17 and see if you got 17 units on the subsidized housing inventory in 1 year. That's all they look at. That it doesn't matter how you did it. It doesn't matter if you did it from one of these strategies or if you got a 40B that came in and provided those units. So that being said, yeah, I do hope you take the strategy seriously, even though you know that there's nothing mandating that you implement them. So we really view this as a menu of choices. We don't view it as a blueprint where everything will be done in exactly the way that it's envisioned here. We view it more as a menu of choices. You may try one thing 1 year, you can't get it approved, you go on to the next thing. Or something may become not feasible or unrealistic, or perhaps there was not an opportunity. And so that's why we provide quite a few strategies, because we think that you need the options. If something doesn't work, you want to have other things to try out. All right, so I won't read all of these. I know that you've had the plan now for, I guess, about a week, and but these are the ones, the 7 that we listed as things that involve planning, policies, and zoning. And I can go back to these, but let me just give an overview. This one is the local initiatives and programmatic strategies. And so this is where we, talk about the housing trust and the parcels that were transferred to the trust and what to do with those. We talk about investigating feasibility of other things like veterans housing, which I know you've been working on for a while now. And then the community development block grants would also be something that would be programmatic strategy by doing a rehab program. This is just a map showing.
Can I ask a question, Jen?
Yeah, of course.
Back at the previous slide, the CDBG program, we do have an active CDBG program right now that will end at the end of June. My understanding was that houses that were rehabbed through that do not go on the housing inventory. Is that correct?
So there have been different rulings on that over the years. For a while, they were counted as long as they had a 15-year restriction.
Correct, and ours does, I believe.
Yeah,
But
and then
anyway.
for a while they were not counted. DHCD, changed their guidelines on that, and then they were counted again. And I believe now, as long as they do meet that 15-year requirement, that DHCD will count those. But once the 15 years is up, they come off of your inventory and you can't get them back on.
Right, but that could help us with the 17 number, because we do have, I believe it's 15 units that were to be completed during the life of the term, and we have an OSMD that has 1 unit going to Habitat for Humanity that has just kind of re-entered the permitting. But I was told, I guess it was last spring, that no, these did not go on the housing inventory. So how do we find out?
Yeah, I did ask recently, but now I don't remember. The years blend together now, and I don't remember if recent was a couple years ago or within the last year. So I'll ask again. I usually ask Margot Leclerc, who is our contact at DHCD. She provides the subsidized housing inventory every time we're working on a HPP. She's the one that always provides it to us. So I'll send her an email and just double check, and I can
thank
forward
you.
it to you. Yeah, it's frustrating because sometimes they change policies and I'm not aware of the change. So
Yeah, and I'll just add that I spoke to Diane Hansen about this for you when we were writing your plan as well, and she confirmed that the ones that already exist in towns and rehab, the ones that rehabs that have been done don't count because they didn't have the affordability restriction on them, the 15-year one. So the ones that have been done so far there apparently didn't have that anyway, whether or not that's the current.
So the homeowner has to agree to that 15-year condition, correct? Okay.
Yeah, as a condition of getting the funds, yeah.
That seems like
And
a hard road.
Andrew, you're saying that they do not have that 15-year requirement?
Right, that's what she said. When I wrote to her, she wrote and said that all of the towns and units that they've assisted with in that program are not eligible because they didn't have the 15-year restriction in place.
Wow.
Madam Chair? Courtney?
Yep.
If I may, I didn't want to interrupt while Jen was speaking, but since there's been interruptions now, I'd like to call the meeting to order of the planning board.
Sure,
Because we
yes.
have a quorum here. So if I could get a roll call, please.
Carol Hofstas, present.
Mike Verosco, present. Sorry, I was about 10 minutes late. I came in at 7:10.
And Laura.
Oh, hi, Mike.
So please make that note. And Mike, are you still on the trust? Joan?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Sorry. I was
Yes.
trying to unmute my thing.
So
I
you
am.
need to add him to the trust as well, as far as the minutes go. And back to the discussion on the CBG grant money. That has, I believe that all of them are supposed to have that because I've done a couple of them in town that were, well, one was sold after the 15 years. So there was no payback. And another one was sold during the 15-year payback, and there was a proration that had to be paid actually prior to closing, or papers had to be signed prior to closing of the amount that would be due. So I don't know how those grants would have been given without that agreement, because it seems that it was the same for everyone. So somebody would have
Sorry.
to, yeah.
It's no understatement saying that we've been given incredibly conflicting information from our grant manager. And I can assure you, we will be on this tomorrow morning, first thing.
Yeah, it could also be that they expired, and so that's, like that 15-year affordability restriction was on them and they expired, but that
No,
they're
they
not.
only just started being developed, Andrew.
Right.
The first one wasn't even finished until January of 2021.
All right, I'm reading from page 9 of attachment A3. Affordable housing restriction. Rehabilitation loans made under this contract shall be secured by a mortgage on the subject property, which includes language restricting rent levels in units occupied by low and moderate income tenants for so long as the loan is outstanding in the case of owner occupied properties and for a minimum of 15 years. In the case of investor owned property. We'll have to investigate this.
I think most of the money that she's probably done with this last grant has been owner occupied and not by investors.
I know the treasurer collector has a list of these. This isn't the first time Townsend has done these grants.
Right.
And I know that they have had houses go off a bit after the 15 years. And I'm almost positive Diane has been giving this list to the treasurer collector's office to take note for the 15 years. So like Joan said, that's very conflicting that now this isn't, there's no 15 years on this now.
I think there is, but it might be owner occupied versus investor owned. I don't know, but it is here on the page 9 of this attachment.
I find it hard to believe that any of them are investors.
Right,
That
it
grant
is.
money has gone to investors. It's owner occupied that they look for.
I think so.
And I'm equally concerned that if any of these mortgages, or any of these houses have been sold, there is a payback, and did that
Right.
payback actually happen? I would be equally concerned about that as well.
Well, the latest grant round that you're in, are you talking about like the 181,000?
Correct.
Okay,
Well, it's more than that. It's 600,
Okay.
600,000, I think, for housing.
okay. And because it's not the first CBG, whatever that we've gone through.
No.
So when did this one start?
2018.
2018, yeah.
Right, so none of them will have expired.
But they may have been sold.
That's what I'm concerned about, Lori.
But there's a deed, there is a restriction. In other words, when they go to get the municipal lien certificate upon sale, which has to be done whether an investor buys it or some new occupant buys it, there is an MLC. The MLC is going to show what betterments, what that shows up on the MLC. It's like unpaid taxes. So
Right, but that's only if they filed it. And Andrew is saying that they're not filing them.
Well, I found the email from Diane. It may help or make it worse, but what it says is, or both. But it says the units we've completed in Townsend do not qualify for inclusion on the SHI. The only units that qualify for inclusion on a community's SHI are investor-owned units that are subject to an affordable housing restriction. All of the Townsend units we have assisted have been owner-occupied units that are not eligible for the SHI because there's not a long-term minimum 15-year affordable restriction in place. So I think it is the investor versus owner dichotomy that's at play here, actually.
She's
Yeah.
got it reversed.
Yeah,
well,
we'll investigate this.
yeah, I think
Get to
so.
the bottom of it. So
If there's a mortgage
So we
on the
can move
property,
on.
there'd be a deed reference, so.
the ones that I had dealt with were owner occupied properties. And those had the loan is for 15 years. If you live there for 15 years as owner occupied, you don't have to pay it back.
Right.
So that gets recorded. Why it would be different for an investor, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, we can find out. I mean, I know, Joan, you had said you were going to look into it, but I can email the treasurer collector. I'm almost positive Diane has been giving this to the treasurer collector, but let's double check.
Thanks, Joan.
And I'll go ahead also and just confirm with Margot Leclerc, just from the state side, that,
thank you.
and I'll clarify about if there's any difference in their minds about the investor-owned units versus the owner-occupied units, as long as they both have the 15-year restriction, do they both count? I'll ask that question too and clarify that.
Okay, thank you.
Because
Jenna, could you also find out who reports that as well for me, please?
Who reports it? Yeah.
the other thing that kind of piggyback on that, when you get one of these grants, and it's for your septic or your roof or a furnace or deletting, which is what I've seen most of them be, there's an income qualification here. When you you go through an application for them to see that you qualify to get the grant. So if that's not affordable, I don't know what is.
Right.
All right. Well, it sounds like we have some homework on both sides. So, all right. So
Always homework.
So this map is kind of an interesting map, I think, maybe because I'm a planner, but it shows a bunch of different layers here, and some of them are environmental constraints, and regulatory constraints. So your aquifer protection overlay, your groundwater protection overlay, areas of critical environmental concern. So those are the top three you see here on the legend, and you can see that most of your town is either protected open space or included in one of those restricted areas due to the environmental sensitivity or sensibility. I don't know what you want to say. And then you can see that there are these other colors here. So the bottom one is the Affordable Housing Trust properties that have been transferred to the trust. And so they're in this kind of bright purple, and you can see that they're in, various locations. The brown, this one is looking at it. It's tied to one of the recommendations in the regulatory section of the HPP strategies that talks about looking at this whole corridor to encourage redevelopment of existing properties and encourage redevelopment for, maybe mixed use, but also for housing and affordable housing that could count on the SHI. And then these other two are just your, I think these are just your zoning districts. And then I thought there was one more. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to say. It's not really shown on the map. It's shown in the inverse on the map. This whole area that isn't covered by these various regulatory protections. In here, I don't know, we just keep calling it the white area. There's probably a better way to refer to this. Nobody else would know what the white area is if they're not looking at this map, but this whole area.
Areas of opportunity.
Areas of opportunity. What we did, you'll see there's a number of places throughout the strategies where we say, look at these areas that don't have as many constraints, and can you encourage infill or other type of flexible development to help get you more housing options in areas that are not constrained. And then again, along this corridor, encouraging redevelopment of properties that are already developed. And so those were the big things that, in terms of strategic location that we proposed to really try to avoid as much of this more constrained land as possible, with the caveat that the trust does own some of these other properties that are in more constrained areas. It's not to say you can't develop there. It's just that you're more limited there.
Well, that Wallace Hill property looks like it's isolated from the overlays, right?
Yeah, it looks like it's in the area of critical environmental concern, though, that yellow.
Oh, yeah.
Which doesn't mean you can't develop, but it's just another environmental, factor.
Yeah,
Jen, do you have the 100-year and 500-year floodplain overlay?
I don't think we put it on this. We do have it, I think, on another map in the plan.
No, I can pull it up if you want to see it.
Thanks, I'd love to see that.
Okay, let me stop my share so you can look at that. Well, actually, let me show you. There's only, I think,
Finish
one
the
more
other slide and I'll pull it up.
Yeah, let me do this and then I'll flip over to Andrew. So the last section of the plan, of the strategies rather, is about the capacity, education, and coordination. And so it's about education, greater awareness of some things you already have in place, collaboration, and considering the CPA as another source of funding. It's something that could potentially help your housing trust get a regular source of income so that they can, or revenue, I should say, so that they could do other initiatives. And then continuing with the land use coordinator. And again, we talk about a predictable source, and we kind of cross-reference the CPA here, but also inclusionary zoning payments and ARPA funds could also all help the trust have a more robust revenue sources. And then this is just about relationship building with local developers, local and regional developers, which you already do. It's just a continuation. Okay, that was really everything.
Can you say a few words about the Community Development Preservation Trust Act?
Yeah. So the Community Preservation Act has been something that towns and cities in Massachusetts can voluntarily opt into. It's been around for 20 years now. And most communities now in the Commonwealth have adopted CPA, and it allows the community to voluntarily put a surcharge on your local property taxes. You can do you can go down to as low as 0.5% or up to 3% is the maximum. And then the state has a fund that you're all already paying into if you've done any, if you filed any or any documents rather at the Registry of Deeds, you have to pay an extra fee, and that fee goes into the state fund, but the state fund only gets distributed to communities that adopt CPA. So even though, if you look at it that way, every town and city in the Commonwealth is putting into the state trust fund every time you do a transfer of property and file anything at the Registry of Deeds. But if you're not already in the CPA program, you're not getting the benefit of those state funds. So that's my plug. I think it's a good program. It helps fund open space, historic preservation, recreation, as well as affordable and community housing.
Sounds good.
Jen, can I just say something on that?
Mm-hmm.
CPA was turned down in Townsend, I know once, perhaps twice in the 2000s. Around 2003, I think was the first time, 2003, 2004, and again later in the 2000s. Doesn't mean it shouldn't come back, put on as a warrant article. On the ARPA funds, the Board of Selectmen did vote to provide the Affordable Housing Trust with $100,000
Oh, great. Okay.
for seed money to go forward and do things. So
That's great. And so we can put that in our strategy description that's been done.
okay, Chaz can probably send you information on that, or I can, either way. We have a
that's
defined
great.
account for that, so.
Great. Yeah, just any language specifically around what it, you said seed money, but I'd like to see the official language.
Okay.
If I may, Madam Chair?
Yep.
Regarding the CPA, when it was originally brought up before town meeting, it was not presented in the way that it's presented today. And that is that originally when it came into effect, it was on the sale of property only. So it was, again, making the purchase of a home in the community where it was done more expensive. And generally the seller would have to pay it at the closing. However, it was added on to the price of the home. Anything like that is going to be. Now, where it's if it's presented with the benefits that it has of spreading it across the full town on every property, well, the homeowners are going to like it or not like it,
Right.
but if you can, and probably not like it, but by the same token, if you can present all the benefits of it and what the cost would be, even if you only started with that 1.5% and explain.
0.5 is a
I
possibility.
think 0.5, you get it too, at 0.5. Lori.
I didn't mean that. Yeah, 0.5, but no, 0.25 would be a quarter, right? Versus 0.5 would be a half.
Yeah, 0.5 is the lowest that any community has adopted it. I actually don't think the statute gives a low limit, a bottom limit, but the lowest any community, I think there's only one, now I can't remember which one, but Northborough maybe adopted at 0.5%, so half a percentage.
Okay, so it's like, but you have to show what all the benefits would be from that. And I mean, the assessors could give the amount that would be raised, in total, if you spread it across the whole town.
Mhm.
And then you have that number at the meeting, and that's how you present it with what it's going to go for. And then, hope for the best.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yep.
I agree with you, Lori, and I just wanted to kind of put this caveat and throw it out to everybody that these are all things that we've been working very closely with both Jen and Andrew in regards to what are some of our options. And I liked her analogy of saying that it's more of a menu as opposed to a blueprint, because the housing production plan needs to have options. And we've looked at all the options available and discussed them at great length. And these are what we feel are ones that within the next 5 years, because that's how long the plan is written for, within this next 5 years, these are feasibly areas in which the Housing Authority, collaborating with both the Affordable Housing Trust, the zoning, the planning board, just to be able to look into these, research it, find out feasibility, and then if we need to take action, we can take action.
Yeah, perfect. Andrew, I just took down the share. Do you have the authority? Yeah.
I called up the map here. So this is the map on the left that we were just looking at. And here's the floodplain map. The key is cut off, but the blue is the 100-year floodplain, and the dark green, this color here, is the 500-year floodplain.
Oh, thank you.
So I can't, I don't have the layers open right now to superimpose them, but it doesn't look like any of the properties, at least, that we were talking about are in any of the floodplains, actually.
Can you send that to us, Andrew, please?
It's in the plan.
Oh, it is? Oh, great. Okay, thanks.
It's somewhere in the environmental constraints section.
Yeah, and if it's helpful to you, and I don't know if you want this, but we're happy to send separate PDFs of the maps if
Yeah,
if
sure.
you find them useful as standalone, for other purposes. We
Well,
can
through
also
the-
send map packages. I don't know if you have GIS capacity, maybe your land use coordinator, but we're happy to share the original files too, so you can recreate these and manipulate them if that's helpful. Some communities say, no, we don't have the capacity to do it, so.
We might
can-
want to put those up on a shared drive, Jody, huh?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you could please send those to me, that would be great.
Yeah. So I think Andrew, we can have Delaney just make map packages.
Yeah, she has those. I don't have them on my computer, but she can send them along. And we could put the floodplains on that other map if you prefer to.
Andrew, did that show the 500-year floodplain?
Yeah, it's on there as well. It's in a sort of dark green color. Recently, we've been changing that to a darker blue. So I think we should update the colors and send you the better one, because the green makes it not look like water to me. So we changed that recently for another project, and I think it looks better. So we'll redo the colors on this.
Thank you.
So that's really our whole presentation, and what I typically tell boards and commissions when they meet to hear this presentation is it's up to you all. If you have a quorum of the planning board and the select board and you feel as though you're ready to vote, you're certainly, that's your choice. But most of the communities we work with don't vote at the first presentation. They kind of mull it over, they send comments, and we do another round of revisions based once we have the comments, and then we send it back. But I'm not trying to slow the schedule down. If you're ready to vote, that it's up to you all. But I just wanted to put that out there. But that's everything we had tonight, Courtney.
Great. Jen, can you just, for those of you who haven't heard it, can you just review the process of like what they're voting on and what the next step is from there, just so that everyone's aware?
Sure. So once we only need officially 2 votes. It's the planning board and the select board. And that's, if you wanted to have the housing board, the housing authority or the housing trust also vote, you could do that. It's just not required by DHCD. Once you have those votes to approve the plan, you're approving it. You send a letter, and we have an example. It basically just says like, planning board voted on X date unanimously or whatever the vote was, and select board voted on this date, whatever the vote was, to approve this plan, and we're submitting it to DHCD for state approval. And then DHCD reviews it. They have 30 days to determine if it's complete. We usually send them an advanced copy, and I'm actually happy to do that tonight or tomorrow if you'd like. We can also do revisions first if you'd prefer, and then send it to them. But I usually send an advance copy and just say, this plan is looking like it's about to be approved. Can you just review it informally for me and tell me if you think it's complete? And that just gives Phil DiMartino, who does the review at DHCD, a little lead time, and he gets back to me and says it's complete or he wants to add something. And then when we send it to them officially, when you vote and we send the letter of your vote in, they've already actually seen it. So that's typically how we do it. But if you end up voting tonight and want to send it in officially without that preliminary, that's fine too. I'm not trying to hold you up. We just usually do that, a little earlier. And so they have 30 days to decide if it's complete. If it's not complete, they send it back and say you need to add such and such or whatever it is. And then if it is complete, they will take up to 90 days to approve it. However, you should know that once they approve it retroactively to the day that you submitted the complete plan. So if you approve tonight and we submit the plan tomorrow, and they decide it's complete, then when you get your approval, you may not get it, it's January, February, March, April. Maybe you don't get the official letter till April, but they'll say it's approved as of the tomorrow, if we send it in tomorrow. So that means, just long roundabout way of explaining, if your ZBA happened to have a comprehensive permit application that they were reviewing right now, and they voted to approve it and submit the town clerk, the decision to the town clerk on Monday, and we submitted your complete plan on Friday before, that means those units can count towards your certification. So some communities are like right up against that timeline. So I just thought I'd explain that to you, but that's the process.
Thank you.
I don't know about it, Bill. You guys got a big old plan that we don't know about, the ZBA?
No, knock on wood, no comprehensive permits in front of us now.
Jen, you changed page 13, saying that we do have a land use coordinator now.
Oh, okay. That must have been written before.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
And I found a typo on page 29. The TAHT is the VAT, which I do all the time myself.
It does it automatic. It's like
The
automatic.
autocorrect is so infuriating.
Correct, yeah. CHAT.
And I did ask Andrew today earlier to add Cindy Boundy, our wonderful new member on the trustee on the Affordable Housing Trust.
I did that this morning. The land use coordinator was on what page? I just have it open so I can make a note.
13.
Okay.
So, Jen, I have one more question. We just passed a age-restricted bylaw, which awards some considerable density bonuses, and would be, I don't know if it's can go against the SHI number or not.
Does it require affordability? Any affordability?
I can't remember. There's somebody from the planning board still on the call here.
Yeah, I don't believe that it hasn't, I don't believe it has the requirement. Chaz, do you remember?
No, we didn't want to, I shouldn't say we, they didn't want to add an affordability clause to it. They left it as a age restricted.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
so that won't help your SHI at all, but it could help address a housing need for older adults. We'd be happy to add that in because we like to explain what other housing options the town is promoting through zoning. So
I think we did, Jen, didn't we, when we were doing the...
Oh, is it there?
I think it's in the first, because we had a discussion about it. I think it's in the first section of things that we either were working on or thinking of working on. I can't remember exactly where it was.
Okay, we'll have to check that, and then we can just update that section if it's there, saying that it was approved.
I don't remember seeing it. That's why I mentioned it.
And I'm not sure, Andrew, do you happen to know if we have a copy of the bylaw that was approved? The age-restricted bylaw?
It sounds familiar. I definitely am aware that it was happening because now that it's been brought up, but I don't see it at the moment. I have to
Andrew, it
dig
might have
through my
been something
folder.
that I said I would send to you, and I think I may have not sent it to you.
Oh, I feel like you did send it to me actually. Now that I think about it, my folders are not well organized, so I need a few seconds to find it. I'll have a look.
Okay, so we can let you know if we need it, but we can add, if it's not in there, we can add it in.
I guess I'm shocked that nobody's applied under that bylaw yet. I don't understand quite why, because the town of Littleton has a similar bylaw and they've had some successful projects as far as I know.
When was it adopted?
Ours,
Yeah.
last year town meeting or something?
Oh.
Yeah, it was in,
At least,
I have
at
it
least a
here.
year ago.
Yeah, it says May 8th, 2021.
Oh, okay.
Almost a year ago.
so I
Sorry.
did send it to you.
I found it. I just had to dig through the folder.
I know that, Bill, we are still waiting for confirmation of getting everything that was passed in that from the state.
Oh, the Attorney General hasn't come back on that yet?
No,
Huh? Well,
we
I
have,
don't object to much, so I'm not too
we
worried
have a
about that.
shepherd tending to it.
Oh, okay, I have something that everyone will laugh at. How do we get like millions of dollars to buy like a strip mall property in town to develop?
Well, I don't know if it would be considered a slum and blight area under the federal definition, but you could create a redevelopment authority and potentially, take it by eminent domain. That doesn't help you get the money, but it helps you get the authority.
No, you wouldn't want to take this by eminent domain.
Okay.
No.
I did, as an aside, I did hear that the building that was sold to, I don't know where the guy's from, but somebody bought the building that now is Northeast Flooring on the first floor, used to be Townsend Floors. And they have an elevator in that building. It's 3 stories. They have a great, I think, because I talked to him about this myself, not this new buyer, but the old ones, about having just like studio apartments. Again, studio apartments, elevator, close by to the post office, and other things, the dollar store. So that may be coming down the pipe. The only thing there would be, and I believe they're looking into it because they have a parking lot behind the building that could accommodate a larger septic system if it needed it, for bedrooms or stuff like that. So that's another possibility. I mean, just like the industrial building in West Townsend, which is also on Main Street. I don't know I think the square foot there was big too. Somebody could, just like a lot of the mills are renovated into housing. Somebody could make that housing too. So
Yeah,
there are,
the Nielsen Plan, is that what you're talking about in West Townsend?
yeah, had a loading dock in the front.
Yeah.
It was for sale. They don't have the sign up anymore, but it's one of the properties that we put into the 43D to the state, one of the ones to consider. So there are actually some structures for this small town that have possibilities of becoming some rental units, whether senior or just, single people looking for a place to live. The rentals are still, there are no vacancies in town for rentals. None. And anybody that's working on something, an apartment or something like that, renovating it, it's rented before it hits the market.
Yeah.
What, can I just ask a question? What's the status of the building that burned down? I know that when I was on the planning board, we had looked at plans for rebuilding that.
Yeah, I don't think he has the money to do it, Ronnie, because
Okay.
the demolition of the old building, because it was full of asbestos, cost him half of his, insurance settlement. So he's been trying to round up money for that.
All
And
right.
he wants a pretty penny if he's selling it, if you want to buy it.
Okay.
What is he selling?
The land.
He could sell the lot. I mean,
lot.
it's got all the permits it needs, and he by demolishing the original structure, he made substantial progress. So his permits won't expire, I don't think.
Well, that's interesting because it's part of a master deed. It's part of a condominium project. That's okay. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so I can think like this, but I'm not going to give an opinion.
Which property is this?
Is it called Pine Ridge?
Yeah, it's the 30 units we lost in town when that building burned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. For some reason, I thought you were talking about the church building because that was a more recent fire. I always forgot that happened. It's been like, what, 3 years now?
Couple years, yeah, for sure.
The church, yeah. No, that's a $3 million project. So, it's not for the faint of heart.
So
Madam Chair, if I may, the thought that Jen is throwing out is that how do we want to proceed with this? And I think that we might want to have a discussion in regards to that.
Yeah, I would say that we have a few edits that came out tonight, a few things to check on, right? So it sounds like we should make those edits, and then I would say that we that we likely want to submit the kind of preliminary that you suggested, Jen, so we can make sure we're complete since we're not up against anything else unless others feel otherwise. And when you send the edits back, I would ask the planning and selectmen to review it and take a vote on it after that. Does that?
I'd like to also suggest that the Housing Authority and the Affordable Housing Trust be put their votes in. Again, not that it does anything other than I want to show the state that we are collaborating.
Yep, I agree. And Courtney, I agree with your points on the edits that were mentioned tonight. And Jen, would you be sending it into the state for the preliminary with those edits?
Yeah, I think we can do that. And it's very informal. We just basically email Phil a PDF and say, what do you think of this? So we don't need anything from you all, but I always just like to say that we're going to do it.
Okay. Yeah, because we've done it before. I understand their process.
Yeah,
So
good.
I think it's a good one.
Courtney, can I ask a question? This is about edits, because I had a couple edits and questions.
That is completely surprising to me.
Do you want them now, or would you rather have them in writing later?
Well, could I suggest if they're more along the lines of typos or like stylistic or even like correcting a fact or something like that, you could just email it to us.
Okay.
And that's actually a little easier for us to just have it in writing so we can make sure we're getting them all. But if it's something that's more of a policy discussion that you think the other members here tonight would benefit from all weighing in on, then I would say it would be important to talk about.
No, these are things that I can mail into you.
Great.
It's not policy or anything like that.
Okay, great. And if you could send them to Andrew. Andrew, could you post your email?
Yeah,
we don't have the chat. Okay.
It's just andrew@jmgoldson.com. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be away next week, so I don't want it to get caught up in an email inbox that I'm not looking at for a week.
Yeah, and if somebody was going to send something else about something, send it to me as well.
The CDBG.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, asking Diane.
Yes, and also Chaz, I'm just going to send you the paragraph from the plan about the age restriction developments in case there's anything you want me to change in there.
Okay.
I'll send an email so we can have a quick discussion about that.
Yeah. Okay. I'll review it and send it right back.
What it's JM Goldson at.
No, it's Andrew@jmgoldson.com.
.com. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think I'll ask that once edits go to these guys and they get us back a draft, that everyone please review it at your next board meeting when you have that after we get the edits. Okay.
Yeah, and it would be helpful for us to just know like when the edits are all in, because it would be good for us just to sit down once and do them all at the same time. So if you could, just let me know that these are the final edits and we don't have any other members expected to, that would just be helpful for us to know, and then we'll sit down and do them.
Well, let's put it a timeline on it, Courtney.
Yeah, I would say that too. If everybody could get in edits, let's say by the 4th, is that possible? The end of next week?
Doable.
Yes.
Okay.
I think our goal is to have the plan approved and ready for town meeting.
Yeah.
So hopefully there's a placard for that on your warrant, whether we have it, back or not, but that would be the goal. So
Does it need to be voted at town meeting?
I believe it has in the past.
It has been in the past. It's not required, but it has in the past been voted on.
So we need a warrant article.
Right.
Yeah.
So Jody, can you put that on our, you knew I was going to say that, didn't you?
We won't have the state approval by then, so there's no point in voting on it, right?
Well, we might, if we get it out to them. Jody, could you find out from Karen Chapman how that worked in the past? because I'm pretty sure we had it at town meeting, and I know that I remember her reporting back when she'd get the acceptance from the state. So can you just check that out? Or maybe Jen, you know.
Well, Lori, we did a 2015, didn't we do that in January and it was done by April? I know
Yeah,
it was
we-
relatively
we
quick
had
when
it
we
at
did
the
it back
meeting.
then.
Yeah, they are kind of behind at the State House, but yeah. I would like to see it sooner than later. I don't see why everybody who's on tonight are the ones, it would be only people who are on tonight that are going to be doing edits, and why you can't have it in by Monday,
Yeah, by the first.
by the 1st to Jen, and just let her send it to the state for the preliminary and be on with it. We don't need to belabor it any more than we have.
Yep. Can
I mean,
everybody?
Is there any chance at all the thing would actually be approved in its final form by the state in time to make the town meeting?
Optimistically, yes.
In a month, yeah? Jen, you think that's possible?
It's not likely.
No, our town meeting isn't until May.
It's not until May.
Oh, you're
Middle of
right, you're
May.
right. I'm thinking of the warrants, the warrant, right, sorry.
You only need the
Oh, my
placard
bad.
for the warrant.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so you're gonna send edits in by Monday then, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I'll put a note on my calendar for Monday or Tuesday that I'll integrate those and send them back to Courtney, I guess, right?
Great.
Yep, and we can distribute it to send it to Jody and myself.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
and then also I'll be away, so just send it to Phil DiMartino. I'll give you his
Oh, right, okay.
email. Mm-hmm.
Courtney, if I may, I'd like to recognize that our staff liaison for our staff for planning board is also on the call today. I don't know when she came on, but thank you, Beth, for joining us.
Is there any other comments for now for Jen related to the HPP?
I would just want to thank you, Jen, and thank you, Andrew, for all the work. Again, I mean, we've been plowing through this for several months now, and I'm very pleased with the product that we have right now. It's in its almost final stage. I think it looks really good. I also want to thank the boards that came on tonight. This is the kind of work that we in town need to be able to collaborate through the boards to be able to move this stuff along. This is how our local government really should be working, and I want to thank you all for your time and effort.
And I would just like to say you've all been very lovely to work with, and you know, housing plans are not easy to do. They can be very contentious, and you've just been a joy to work with. You've all been very thoughtful and diligent in working with us, and I appreciate that. Andrew and I both do. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, if you don't need us anymore, then I think we'll sign off.
Yeah. Have a good night.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Are there any other boards that have any other comments before you close?
Anyone from planning? I don't think so, but let me know when you want us to, adjourn each of the boards.
I think you can at any time, but if THA could stay on for a minute so we can discuss one other item, that would be great.
I'll, as a chair of the Townsend Affordable Housing Trust, I'll call the adjournment at 8:26 p.m.
Yeah, but wait a
Wait a
minute.
motion, please.
No, Courtney, don't you want the THA to stay on?
Yes, please. Yes.
Oh, you want TAHT also? Sorry. Never mind.
I think we can do just THA to stay on. It's okay.
Okay,
Just-
so I'll call for a motion to adjourn the planning board meeting, joint meeting. And could I have that motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the joint meeting of the planning board and the housing authority.
I'll second that, Carol.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll have a roll call vote to adjourn the meeting.
Carol Hoff says yes.
Mike Verosco, yes.
And Laura Schifrin, yes. So we are adjourned at 8:27.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cindy and Joan
So
Savoy, yes.
I'll take a motion that we make a motion that we adjourn the Affordable Housing Trust.
I'll second. And roll call, please.
Veronica Kell, yes.
Mike Verosco, yes.
Okay, Cindy Boundy, yes.
Joan Savoy, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Adios.
Thank you.
Okay, well, people don't have to leave, right?
Yeah, they don't have to leave. We
Yeah,
just-
you don't have to. I just. Okay,
I think they use that as their excuse.
Mhm.
that's all right.
Courtney, go
Anyone-
ahead.
Yes, just my, I, that I did have was the, annual report before the Housing Authority. And I know I, got that to you guys late, but if anyone has any comments, please let me know.
I'm okay with it.
Me too.
You guys did a great job.
Yeah.
I do believe, Jody, isn't that supposed to be due on January 28th, if I remember from the, I think it was
I think
January.
so.
Yeah. So,
But they'll take them whenever they can get them, quite honestly.
well, I'll make a motion that we accept the annual report as submitted. If anybody has any changes.
Great, thank you. We get a second?
I second the motion.
Roll call vote, please.
Natalie Call, yes.
Jill Sexton Duranian, yes.
Laura Schifrin, yes.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Okay, the only other item I had is for our next meeting, and if we would like to go ahead and vote on the plan. I originally had it for the 17th of February, but if we'd like to do that sooner at all, let me know.
To vote on the plan that we just talked about.
Yeah, unless we would like to ourselves vote on it tonight, but we don't have the edits, so.
Yeah. I'd kind of like to wait to see what we get back from Dean Napoli in regards to that. So.
Yep.
17th is I think it's clear with me. If anybody else does.
That's clear with me.
I can do the 17th.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Great.
And that's at 7 o'clock on the 17th?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And as far as the plan goes, I mean, it's basically been the THA that's gone back and forth with Jen and Andrew since the beginning. So we've probably read it more word for word than anybody else. So once the edits come back and she sends it to the state, I mean, I'm okay with it. I'll do a once over again, like once we see any of the other edits, but they don't seem to be policy things. They seem to be more grammatical.
Yeah.
So she's going to have it at the beginning of the week. We're going to get to see it as soon as she does the edits, because she's going to get it off to the state. Can't we meet before that and get our stamp on it so that it goes to, because she's doing a preliminary to the state to see if we left anything out.
Yep.
If he says nothing is left out, then we should vote on it so that it goes to the state.
Well, it has to. It's the planning board and the board of selectmen that need to vote on it, Lori.
Well, then
Yeah.
but if we do it and submit it to them,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah,
I
we
see what
do
you're
it.
saying.
So submit it to the other two boards and get it going. Maybe,
So-
when is the next Board of Selectmen's meeting?
February 1st and I think the 15th.
So do we want to try for the 10th at all? And then we can vote on it before the next Board of Selectmen meeting?
Yes, I would do that.
Okay.
And then I think planning is the 14th.
Is Beth
So-
still? No.
No, she's not, but I think it's the 14th.
Is it? Okay. It's Valentine. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
Right, and didn't I say that?
Yeah, you did. That's why it was like, oh.
Whoopee, okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, so let's do that. I mean, I could do a third too, but that might be close. So,
I just sure that if Andrew gets, a lot of edits, that if he actually gets those edits back to us, I don't know whether it's,
okay,
if he takes more than a day, or something, and we don't have it on the 3rd, that would be my only worry.
yeah, okay. Let's do it on the 10th and hopefully plan to send it on to planning that night. And so that, Jody, can you just make a note of that? So that night it goes to Beth, and then I want it to hit the agenda for the planning board meeting. So it can hit the agenda for the Board of Selectmen's meeting too, the following week.
Well,
You know
why
what,
don't we
I'll
submit?
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I'll touch base with Beth on Monday when she's back in and let her know to expect it. Maybe
Okay.
she can add it before, that way it
Yeah,
won't.
we'll put it in. I'll ask Veronica to put us on for the selectmen. And if we don't make it, Jody, then we just
Yeah,
don't make it.
Yeah.
We'll have to change it and redo it, but I'd rather get on the agenda sooner.
yeah. Have a place we can always, it's easier to take it off than it is to put it on.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Lori. I want it, if we can get it in this town meeting, that would keep us in the right time frame.
In pretty good shape anyway. We're still late.
Yeah, we're still
It's
late, but
2022, not 2020,
wow.
so,
We're
okay,
still operating under a master plan from 2001, so.
okay.
Okay, so
So
next meeting,
7 PM on the 10th?
Yep.
All right,
So I make a motion that we adjourn at 8:35 PM, Madam Chair.
I second the motion.
great. Roll call vote, please.
Natalie Cole, yes.
Laura Schiff and I, yes.
Yes, Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Courtney Rowe, yes. Thank you.